What's up, y'all? It has been, I think, 5 weeks. I'm closing in on the peak now. Most of the meat prep has gone by, so it's time for episode 2 of the meat prep series. Howdy, y'all. I know it's been a while. Sorry about that. Turns out I'm very lazy when it comes to things that are not lifting weights. But I'll try my best to do one every week from now on, as they're a lot more interesting. I'm sure promising. Meat recap video, banger, very good. I also now have a mullet, which is how you know it's getting serious. So because there's been so much time since I've made one of these, I'm going to throw it into a bit of a voiceover recap, just go over the highlight reel of things that I've done for the last couple weeks. Try not to bore you too much, but just go over things that have happened and then come back and then get into the peak and how that's going right now. Starting off with 510 for 8 on squats. This was actually after 2 sets of 5. This was the end of the volume phase, really good marker, really happy with this. On to 545 for 6 on deadlifts. Compared to some of the sets that I've hit on the past in terms of deadlift volume, not my best work, but also it gets better as we go. On to 530 for 7 on squats. This was when I knew that we were really moving in a good direction. This was probably one of the stronger volume sets I've ever hit. On to 565 for 5 on deadlift. As you can tell, I'm kind of squatting the weight too much on deadlift. We think it was just trying to avoid loading the hamstring, just like subconscious from the injury. On to 550 for 6. I didn't feel too hot on this session, so I'm glad I still managed a good set. I think being able to forge a good session out of when you're not feeling great is a good skill to learn. On to 585 for 5. This was the first really decent deadlift day. Obviously still not incredible by any means, but really was started to move in a good direction. On to 575 for 5 on squats. Really happy with these. I honestly think these are probably the best looking squats I hit so far in the block. So yeah, overall, very happy. Good volume marker. On to 610 for 4 on deadlifts. I would say this is where things actually started going good. I think I had a few in the tank. Overall, very, very pleased with that. 590 for 5 on squats. Very strong, but technically very weird looking. I try not to get too much in my head about it, suddenly looking weird if it's still moving good. Just going to try and tweak from here to make it look more like how we want to. And then hit 630 for 4, so matching the same number of reps. Very stoked on that. Like I said, that was definitely moving deadlifts in the right direction, and we're actually doing them technically well. Very happy with that. On to 365 for 5 on bench. I know not a lot of people care about my bench all that much, but I was very, very proud of this set. It was actually 3 sets of 5, so probably one of my strongest bench workouts I've ever hit. I think I've hit numbers that if you put it into a 1RM calculator, they'd be better, but I was very, very happy with that and the cleanness of the reps. So that caught you up to the last week, and then I'll catch you up on what happened this week, and then going forward, what are the plans for the peak. So starting on Sunday, I hit 610 for 4, which is a rep PR. Pretty happy with how it moved. I don't know why my squat has suddenly decided to look very weird, but regardless, it's moving very well, so not trying to get too worried about it. If it's moving well, just going to try and tweak it from here, just get it looking, I'd say, more normal. But like I said, very happy with how it's moving. And then on bench, I hit my first single at 390 pounds. Obviously not super heavy. I think it's less than 90%. So not crazy, just getting more into the practice of doing the sport, hitting a single, and just beginning the peak on the bench, just because I've been hitting a lot of volume and not super crazy heavy volumes, a lot of 5s and stuff. So just getting into the heavier weights, hitting a single at the top, and then followed by back down triples. And then on Tuesday, on deadlift, I hit 655 pounds for 4, which is actually the first 4 rep max, new 4 rep max I've hit in 13 months because of a combination of an injury and having to change to kilos. So because we're now on kilos, I think it's actually quite a bit stronger in terms of like actually applicable strength, because I do compete on kilos. Wasn't super happy with the fourth rep, but also, you know, when you're pushing it, sometimes it breaks down. I think the rest of the sets for my deadlift are actually going to look a little bit cleaner, just because they're going to project to slightly less, and as you peak, you're just going to hopefully things keep moving either the same or slightly faster. So the rest of the week, I hit on overhead press, I think it was 245 for 8, which I was pretty happy with. I don't know why I laid back so much during the actual set, but overall, pretty happy with it. I think it's a small rep PR. An interesting note is we are actually keeping the overhead press in for the rest of the meet prep, up until obviously the deload, just because it's been helpful and there's no reason to drop something or change something just because it's the meet prep, because like peaking my upper body strength can include my overhead press and it's done me good and hasn't really harmed anything else. It's not like it's impacting my squat or my deadlift or even my bench. So we kind of started as a at worst neutral, at best positive in terms of getting myself like prepared for heavier weights and building up my triceps slightly more in the last couple weeks. So just want to get into some differences at the peak and some differences from the volume phase, strength phase into the peak. So generally the volume phase and the strength phase are pretty similar. The only difference being obviously the total reps, and there is slightly more like, I guess, focus or emphasis on that top set opposed to the volume phase. You're going to be hitting a lot of your effort for the session is going to be accessories for me. Whereas the peak, there are actually some differences in protocol and stuff. So one, the secondary squat day, which is my pause squat but previously stiff legs, that session is now more so recovery. It's just coming in and hitting basically 2 plates on both, just keeping moving, keeping that mobility. Like a long walk. It's a recovery session opposed to before where it was actually a primary driver of hamstring strength and building up the hip strength for my squat. So that is a difference, is now we're dialing back on that. Another difference is on primary squat day, which is the first day of the week. The accessories are significantly lighter and less taxing. So it's not actually a change of the accessories, it's a change of the protocol. To give you an example, during the strength and volume phases, I hit a few sets on squats, followed by 3 sets of usually 12 to 15 on pendulum squats, followed by some back extensions, followed by hard leg extensions, followed by hip abductions, the protocol for the strength and volume phase. And then as you transition into the peak, what we do for me is we hit 1 hard set of pendulum squats that are like heavier, but also not as like absolute ball out. And then the leg extensions are basically as light as I'm going to get any work out of. So it's mainly like pump, keeping the knees healthy, and just like a little bit of extra stimulus, and then back extensions super easily just to keep the hamstring healthy. And that's the whole squat session. I'll usually throw in some abs because it makes me feel better, but that's all that's programmed. And then on the chain bench, slightly lighter, just trying to be more prepared for that comp single, but generally not much has changed. And then on to the deadlift, and because the pause squat and stiff leg day on Thursday is now not really as hard of a session, kind of just trying to like murder myself on that session, just because if I bury myself in fatigue, I still have 5 days to recover before primary squat day, which unless I actually mess myself up, I will be fine. So that's really where we're trying to build that deadlift strength at the end of the block, opposed to having 2 days to build that, being Tuesday and Thursday. And then from there, hit primary bench. Same idea as my deadlift because that's the most important session. Kind of just trying to go really hard, still accessories very high intensity. Thursday, like I said, recovery session, and then Friday overhead press, like I said, continuing doing that and continue hitting bench afterwards, and they can still go pretty hard as long as I'm not fatiguing my chest and tightening up to the point where I can't get under the bar very comfortably on Sunday. So that's generally the protocol from right now. As we go, just kind of keep lighting things up. The focus right now is just on kind of executing based on what we built for the last 8 weeks through the strength and volume phase, just capitalizing on that, getting good at singles, kind of just peaking the body to be prepared for heavier and heavier weights. So just going to hit slowly, incrementally heavy for the next 3 weeks, take a deload, and then it's showtime. Alrighty, y'all. I will try to post another video this week, actually, just because I think I have the time. I will post more consistently. I don't know. I'm sorry. Alright. Adios.